It takes 53 to earn a ring. What does it look like for 2024? Our initial 53-man roster right here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom and NFL fans at large. I know some of you Bengals fans are watching. Welcome in. We're brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create your account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off of your first ticket purchase. Check it out. Terms do apply. We have a great show for you. We've been waiting all summer for this. This is our first look at the 53-man roster as we expect it right now. We have been covering this team for a very long time, on this show for 8 years, both of us plus since then. You can check out all the cap knowledge and everything that Chris is dropping for you at kcchiefscorner.com on his Substack. You can check out my team's thoughts about the NFL at large at NFL33.com, my Substack, as well as RGR Football, where you can watch everything Chiefs related with the rest of my group. And you can get on Rogue APC for all of your needs based around the draft and athletic performance. We're here for you every single day. That's what Locked On is. Every single show, every day, for free on every platform, starting here. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. You're going to get more out of it that way. We are here, and we start on YouTube. We go to Spotify. We go to Apple Podcasts. Any place you can get a free podcast, you can get us 5 days a week. And if you want that much more, and you want the breaking news and you want the real truth of it, it's at 816-357-8781. That is our insider text line. Come join us over there. You locos, you everydayers, we appreciate you. We know that you're already over there, so come join the fun. Today, we get started finally with the 53-man. Very simple. We talked at length about the quarterback situation last week. Patrick Mahomes is going to be your starter. Carson Wentz is going to be his backup, and that's the 53-man. Chris Aludakun, however, it will likely be the third quarterback. Ironbook could make the practice squad. I don't know that we're going to count on that. But just as a recap of yesterday, that's what it is.
It's Oladokin, but yes, I think he's on the practice squad. Really quick, before we jump into this, there's going to be a lot of training camp stuff coming. We're going to have training camp covered, so be watching for that. I will be at camp. I have some days at the end of July that I will be going to camp. I think Ryan is planning on going to camp. We don't have specific dates for.
I'll be there later, most likely.
Yeah. But we will be at training camp. There will be some reports. Obviously, it won't be live during camp, but it'll be right after. So I'll be looking for that. I just want to throw that out there because that is something. When we say more than 5 days a week, this is the time that we're going to be getting into more than 5 days a week. It's just part of the deal that we do.
Absolutely. They're there all the time. We will be as well. If you need information, we got you covered. So the quarterbacks are out of the way. You know what's going on there, especially if you missed yesterday. Go back and listen to that, and we'll tell you in depth what's going on there. Not to diminish them, but there's no questions at specialist either. Harrison Butker's going to be your place kicker. Matt Reyes is going to be your punter, and Winchester's going to snap for both of them. That is the way it's going to work. There really is no competition for any of those three specialists in this camp. So, boom, your specialists are out of the way. That's 5 guys on the 53 that we agree on, and we are set so far. Now is where it gets interesting. It comes down to how are you going to up the level? We're going to talk about the wide receivers here in a bit, but who's the closest guy? Who can be his personal protector? Who can be his way out? Who can be the relief valve? The running back position, I think, has to be more critical this season, and I see 4 of them making the roster. Where are you at on a count?
4. I think they're going to have 4. Okay. I don't think that they have a 4th tight end, which I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I think that's part of the reason why they keep 4 running back.
Okay. I can make the argument either way. I'm interested to see if you and I have the same list. And folks, we don't discuss this pre. We have both come up with our 53-man rosters, and we are going down for position by position today for you. This is what I have. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco's your starter. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the backup. I have Deneric Prince making this roster as the third, and I have Reese Zammit being that specialist / running back. I don't know how much he's going to see that position, but that's the 4 that I have making it. Where are you?
We have 3 of the 4 are the same. I do not agree with your third. I have Reese Zammit as the third because I think he is going to be one of the kick returners. And I have Carson Steele making this roster because I do think that there is something that they want. And I know I'm really surprised you don't have him there, but to be quite honest.
I'm saving it for our final 53, folks. Just before cutdowns, we're going to do this again. I think Carson will probably be there for me then.
So, I just think that it's a position, and especially when you start looking at how the kickoff is going to change, I think that you're looking at a position where you're going to need additional bodies, and I think that he fits what you're going to want.
It makes sense. And I like the goal line aspect. As I've said, he's not a speed back. He's not your classic tailback, but he is more able as a ball carrier than you would expect. And so let's hope that can get wrinkled in. I'm very hopeful for it. Wasn't ready to put him on there yet because I got to see if Andy's real about it this time. We'll find out. Now, you mentioned what the flip side has to fit this puzzle, as we both have 4 now running backs, where with the same count going. It comes to the tight end group, and that's where we differ. What do you have for the tight ends on the 53-man roster?
3.
You have 3, and who are they in what order?
Kelsey, Gray, and Wiley. And Wiley and Gray are probably interchangeable for me, if I'm being quite honest. I think Gray starts as the number 2, but I don't know that it's really going to matter.
I would agree with Gray as the 2, especially early in the season. We'll see what happens at the bye and what's caught on. But I have 4 making it. I think they keep Irv Smith to keep their options open, especially if we get what we hope for and a lot of 13 personnel. They got to have at least one backup guy, or that really diminishes what you're able to do if you have to take all the 13 personnel groupings out. So I lean towards keeping 4. I know it's a little bit heavy. Last year they only kept 3. Blake Bell was one of them. I do think that there's an option there. Although I will say this. If cut, I think Irv Smith could be a practice squad candidate, and I certainly think Kupp is farther down the practice squad list.
And that's why I don't have Smith on the rosters, because I think he could be on the practice squad.
Fair enough.
How many receivers do you have?
I think they go back to an era of normality, and there are 6 guys that make this roster. That's how I have it right now, with Brown, Rice, and Worthy as your top 3 in that order, followed by Watson. And I actually have Moore and Hardman making the roster right now based on experience more than anything else. Where are you?
I want to be clear, and I don't have Rice on my roster. I still think he gets suspended, and that's just where I sit at this point. So I don't have him on my 53-man roster. So right now, my roster is Brown, Worthy, Watson, Tony, Moore, and Remigio.
Okay. Tony, Moore, Remigio. So because Rice is out, that makes perfect sense. I think Tony either gets cut or traded in this preseason. That's where I'm at on it. You think I'm nuts?
I mean, they can. I think you're crazy. I think you're a little crazy. I don't think that they cut him. I think if they can trade him, great, but he counts the same on the roster as he would be off. So you gain nothing cap space wise. It's $2.5 million you're just throwing away if you cut him. Not gonna say it can't happen, but I think he's probably going to be the punt returner. So I would think that he has a roster spot because of that. And they keep coming out and saying that he's their best wide receiver when it comes to skill position, or the best wide receiver skill wise that they have. So I don't think they cut him. If they can trade him, great, but I can't see them cutting them. I get why you say it though.
I generally would agree with you. I generally would agree with you. My only thing is, he hasn't been able to participate. When he does, he doesn't have the greatest attitude. And my thought is that somebody like Remigio or Hardman or Moore passes him because he's either not able to participate in camp, or when he does, it's not the output that your quote-unquote best talented player at the position should be able to do. So that's where I'm leaning towards Tony not being on this 53.
The argument I would make on that is I think it makes a lot of sense as to why he might not be on the roster. But what I would say is, the thing that you look at with him is there's nobody else on the roster that has his skill set. They don't have the agility. They don't have the ability to do the things he does. And Sky Moore, I mean, I have him on my roster just because I don't know who else is going to step up. And really, until you see it in camp, that's really when it's going to matter. And, this is pre-camp. We don't really know what's going to happen. They haven't had pads on. All of this can change in a matter of weeks.
Yep, you are absolutely right. So as of right now, folks, we both have 16 guys on the 53, the offensive skill positions out of the way. We're going to talk defensive skill players coming up next. And then we're going to get to the big uglies, the guys in the trenches, coming up later in the show. Don't miss that. But right now, we'll be right back in a second to talk defensive skill players here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you ever get on social media and just compare yourself to others? Maybe you go look at somebody's Facebook page or you look at their account posts on X and just say, I wish I had that life. I wish I had, what they have. I wish I was able to take those vacations. If that's something that you do when you compare yourself to others, it can be something that can really disrupt your mental state and your mental happiness. I mean, that is just the way it is. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have so you can start living your best life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
You can also get some help by tuning down ESPN, CBS Sports, all the shouting heads behind you, and getting onto the real action of people that cover their team every single day from a fan perspective and more. Here on the Locked On Podcast Network, we have a show, Locked On Sports Today. It's free and it's 24/7. It's here on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV. Go check it out. You'll be happy that you did. I'm happy that we did break it down by offensive skill positions. Now we're going on to the defensive skill positions. And I'm counting somebody in this group, a position group that I don't usually count. I generally consider linebackers a front seven group. But in this defense, knowing that they sacrifice the run in order to play coverage and be able to be multiple, I'm including the linebackers in this group. So I personally feel like they are becoming more important through the special teams rules, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see the linebackers on this 53 initially?
I've got 5. I've got Bolton, Tranquil, and Chanel. They're your starters. I still think Cam Jones is your 4th. And, I mean, this is the one that's up in the air. Cole Christensen, Jack Cochran. There's other guys that are there, but I still think that Curtis Jacobs probably is somebody that's going to push him for a roster spot and is going to be the 5th linebacker. We'll see how he shows up in training camp. As of right now, those are my 5.
I'm very just slightly, and it's mostly because of the special teams rules and needing depth at this position, which I think is going to be more integral. I think there's 6 on this roster. There were actually 6 last year as well, and I think people tend to forget that. They already had maybe a higher value on linebackers than some teams around the league. I have it exactly as you mentioned, but I have both Jacobs and Cochran being the 5th and 6th guys, with Jones being the primary backup to the starting 3. So I think we are good there. Safeties are going to be interesting, I think. I only have 3 of them making this roster, and that's with a small asterisk on one guy's name we'll get to in a minute. But it's Reed, Cook, and Hicks, and whoever else has to step into that role, I think, may be made up from another position group. How do you see the safeties?
Same as you. And honestly, I picked 5 linebackers because, and I know we're not talking about them right now, but I have 7 corners. I mean, that's my reality. Is you look at the corner room, and I mean, I know we're talking safeties, but we're the same on safeties. But the whole point is, normally you would think that 4 safeties is the minimum. Well, when you start looking at the corners that the Chiefs have, I don't think that that's the case. And that's why I have 7 corners, which seems like a ton, but
I can't argue with you, though, because one of them, and the guy that I mentioned, for my cornerbacks, I have obviously Trent McDuffie starting. I have Najee Johnson be the opposite starter right now. We'll see if that holds true, but right now it feels like Nazee's in the lead for that. And I have Tamara Connor as the starting nickel, with McDuffie moving to the outside, trying to be a travel, takeaway, shutdown guy, which I think he's capable of. But Najee could play safety if he needs to, or if they elect to keep McDuffie in the nickel. So that's where the asterisk goes, folks. So those are my top 3. I have only 6. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is Connor can. That he would be the number 1 guy. Oh, did I say Johnson? Sorry, I meant Connor.
Yeah.
I think Najee will take the opposite side and just kind of take that away.
Okay.
And I only have 6, but my next 3 are Williams, Watson, and I actually have Kelvin Joseph making the 6th spot. How do you break down the rest of them? I assume our top 3 are the same.
So I have my top 5 are McDuffie, Williams, Watson, Connor, and Najee Johnson. So I think those guys are probably set. I don't think that there's any way that those guys aren't on the roster. I think that Haddon is in line to be the 6th corner. And then it becomes a question of, okay, is it going to be Kelvin Joseph or Boye Doe is the 7th? I mean, there's different ways you could go there. Kelvin Joseph could possibly give you somebody that could step back and play safety as well at times in different roles. So it's going to be tough. I mean, you look at how this is going to break out, you look at the roster, and this is what makes it really tough. We haven't talked about the trenches, which we're going to have to get to here in a minute, but you start looking at how this is going to break out. And, you say that they had 6 linebackers last year. They did. I get that. But you have so many corners that it makes it really tough to figure out how you're going to break out and leave some of the corners that you have on this roster right now. Because normally you'd only think that you keep 5 corners. Well, okay, if that's the case, then Connor's maybe you count him as a safety and you keep 6. I don't know. This roster gets so complex when you start talking secondary, which is great for the usage of them. Sorry.
And for both of us, anybody outside of the top 3 on either of our lists could be trade candidates. There are teams around the league that are hurting for secondary help. So they're all, I think, viable candidates to be attractive in a trade. I think the difference for me is that both Haddon as well as Nick Jones, who was on the 53-man last year, are going to be able to be stowed on the practice squad until needed. So that's the difference for me. Whereas I think if Kelvin Joseph does what I expect him to do in the preseason, I think he'd be a trade candidate. I don't think you'd be able to cut him and expect him to get back to the practice squad.
Yeah. And Nick Jones is a wild card. I mean, I said Kelvin Joseph and Boye Doe is the 7th guy, but maybe it's Nick Jones. I mean, they had him on the roster last year. It's going to be, do they feel like he can step in and give them something, similar to what they have in Connor at times, and maybe Jones can come in and play that slot role, because that is going to be important. I mean, if you really want McDuffie to play outside, you have to have somebody that can back up that slot role. And do they have somebody else that they feel comfortable with other than McDuffie? I don't know.
I'm not sure they know yet either. That's why this is a pre-camp 53, folks. And we haven't left out the big dudes. Don't worry. We are getting to that next, because there's more drama in the trenches than you realize, and it may make the difference in this 53. We're going to hit that next here in the Locked On Podcast Network. Summer's in full swing, and we're getting ready for football season. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to go to MLB right now and go see the Royals, or you're waiting on your preseason tickets, your Chiefs tickets for the regular season, or even those cold, snowy days. The best way to get it done is Game Time. It helps if you can plan. I fully admit that, but sometimes you just can't. And so last-minute deals are exactly what you're looking for, whether it's the section of the stadium that you want, whether it's the seat exactly that you want, or whether you're just looking for that last-minute super saver. You can save up to 60% on tickets last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, anything at Game Time. This is really important. I sit in one section of Arrowhead, and I really love it. It's a zone deal. And when that comes up, I try to go all in, because they give you all in pricing with no hidden fees. It takes the guesswork out of getting tickets for Arrowhead, but for baseball as well. You can get it all at Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create your account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply, but it's super simple. Create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off of your first ticket purchase. So download it today. It's last-minute tickets. It's lowest prices, and they are always guaranteed. Guaranteed. That's what I'm looking for. Make sure that you are on the 24/7 feed at Locked On Sports today. I think you will prefer that over the shouting hens that you have to mute all the time. So check that out. We are down to the trenches. We hit all the fancy spot. Now we're going to talk about the guys that actually get wins done. Beating dudes up, down low, off the snap, off the get-go. I believe, unless I've miscounted, Chris, we have the same number of skill position players named already. We have, I believe, 19 spots left. Is that right?
Yeah. No, that's what I have left. I
Okay.
don't know where you are. I'll be honest. I didn't have it written down where you are.
I'm in the same
left.
position. So okay. we have 3 position groups. We have O-line, we have DTs, and we have DNs. Where do you want to start? And what do you have there?
Well, let's start defensive tackle, then we'll go to O-line, then we'll go back to the defense.
Okay.
Defensive tackle, I have 5. I think this is going to be difficult in some ways because you look at guys that have given the Chiefs things in the playoffs and really stepped up for the team at times, and I think that makes this a little bit more difficult. Chris Jones, Derek Nottie, and Tershawn Wharton, I think, are locks. I don't think that they're going anywhere. I do think that there's a question as to who was going to be 4 and who's going to be 5. I give it to Neil Farrell as being the 4th because they traded for him last year. I think that they saw value there. Whether or not that pans out, we'll see. Mike Pennell is another guy that can be the 5th, but then you have a guy like Matt Dickerson who played for the team last year. You have Fabian Levitt as well. The one thing I will say about Pennell is, and you and I have discussed this, especially when we did a deep dive on the defensive tackles. Pennell is a guy that doesn't necessarily have to play all season. Maybe it's better that they put him on the practice squad all year and let him just practice, not have to worry about playing all the time, and activate him if there's an injury or something like that. Because that he's going to be quality for 5 or 6 games. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely proven that. I think that's a perfectly viable way to do it. That's probably what I would do. I too have 5 at this position group. And you and I are in lockstep on our locks for the roster in Jones, Nottie, Wharton. I actually have Pennell on the 53 initially. And I do think that is because of the specific opponents they have early in the season, namely the Ravens, but a number of other games too, where his experience, particularly against the run, I think will pay off. And so I do think they want him on the 53, but you're absolutely right. He could be a guy that you just stash and you wait like you did last year, and he comes on at the end and it just gives you fresh legs and experience. It's a great package.
And it's also possible they put him on the practice squad early on and they activate him for 2 games, and then he sits on the practice squad the rest of the year and they bring him back at the end of the season. I mean, that's possible too. I love the new rules. Sorry, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I agree, because it gives you a lot of flexibility that this team in particular needs. My 5th guy is Fabian Levitt. I have faith in him. I believe he's a better player than Farrell is right now. I believe Matt Dickerson could be a guy that, if experience is the key and you put Pennell on the practice squad, that might flip around, because Matt's given them some snaps in the past that I think the team's been happier with than maybe the public has. So I think that is an outside option, but those are my 5 as well. You wanted to go O-line next, right? So I have 9 here at this group, leaving 5 for the DNs. We'll get to in a minute. Obviously, the starters are Taylor Smith, Creed Humphrey. I'm leaving Joe Thuney on there for now because I expect him to make it. Then it's more Sumatia, because we don't know who's going to win that, but they're both going to be here. And I have Norzad, Caliendo, and the emergency tackle as Lucas Niang. How do you see it?
So I have 9 as well. I see Norzad, and I have Hansen as my other interior guy. I think that they drafted a guy. I think that they're going to give him more of a chance to win. Maybe Caliendo is somebody that is going to show that he can do more. I just wasn't impressed from what I saw last year. And whether or not, I mean, the way I look at this, I guess, is they drafted Hansen for a reason. And if you look back in their history, they will usually take guys late that they think that they can build into something. So, and they will keep them on the roster because they think they can build them into something. So I don't think they risk him to the practice squad for that reason. So we'll see. But I actually have Godric as my tackle, as my backup tackle.
Okay.
I don't have Lucas Niang. And that's mainly because what we've seen from Niang the past couple of seasons is he'll maybe look okay in camp at times, but he doesn't look like he did when he came into the NFL. And that's a big problem. He hasn't improved. He has an injury history. This is his last year with the team. I just don't see them wanting to go with a developmental, with a position that should be a developmental guy, let me put it that way, and give it to a guy that's been here and not been able to actually stay healthy and actually help the team for the most part in the end.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely fair argument, and I debated that particular change. My only thing is, I think when it comes down to those last minutes, I think experience they will lean on. So I gave him the slight edge over Godric only because of that, but you may be absolutely right. And I will say this, the long shot, I think, is a practice squad guy that I will designate there, along with what I had for Hansen. But Caliendo, I think you can probably get to practice squad too, so I won't argue there. Keep an eye on Ethan Driscoll. If he actually comes on, he could give the backup tackles a run for their money.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
think you're absolutely right on that.
So we have 9 offensive linemen. That leaves us 5 spots, 5 defensive end types. I laid it out like this, and this was my thinking: is if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I want somebody, because I think you're going to have to put Menahue on the 53, either because he's made enough of a comeback that you feel good about it, and you don't want to put him on IR for a designated time frame. Maybe it's pup, maybe it's not. I don't know. I know the rules have changed there as well, but I'm including him because he, unlike 4 of these 5 guys, can play inside or outside. And so if you are feeling a little bit thin because you had to let Dickerson go, or you let Farrell go, or whatever you want inside, I have it as Karlaftis, Dana, FAU being the only guy that I think is an edge only, meaning he cannot go down inside and play tackle, followed by a Menahue. And we know that we've seen Malik Herring put in some snaps inside as well. So I had him slightly ahead of Truman Jones, who I think is designated for the practice squad. But if he comes on and it really clicks, he could force his way onto the roster.
Interesting, because you're not mentioning BJ Thompson, and I understand why. So really quick, I agree with you on the top 3. Karlaftis, Dan, and FAU. I agree those are going to be on the roster. I actually don't have him on my roster, and the reason being is I think he's going to either be IR'd or pupped. I'm not sure which, but having an injury in the playoffs like an ACL, you need extra time, and I don't think that they want to rush him back. And honestly, I know he wants to play and he wants to try to go after a contract. I mean, that you see that on his social media a lot, but he shouldn't be forcing himself to try to come back in September, knowing that if he pops it again, he's going to be in an even worse position. And I'm not trying to suggest that I think he will. I don't know that, but I wouldn't put myself in that position. I'd want to try to give it a full 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 months to actually get the healing done and take some extra time. So to me, I don't have him on the roster either. BJ Thompson's the interesting one, and I have him on IR. Because I don't know what they're going to do, and it has nothing to do with the player. I think he deserves to be on the roster if he's healthy, but after having a heart attack and a seizure, I don't know how you could feel like he's going to be on the roster. I mean, I would love to be wrong. I want to specify that up front. I would love it to be wrong. I hope he proves me wrong.
I completely agree with you. I have him as IR'd as well, just out of an abundance of caution. We saw Hamlin come back from his event, which was on the field. I know slightly different than BJ Thompson, but he was able to return. I don't think this is the end of a career for BJ Thompson. I just don't think that they can responsibly put him on the 53 to start the season.
I don't know that I would go that far. I think that they're going to know based on what his injury is, and we don't know that. That's the real issue. I mean, there was something that sent him to have a cardiac arrest, and I agree with you. It could be construed as irresponsible in a way, but they're also going to know exactly what's going on with the player. We have no idea. So we're just speculating right now. For me, I have Herring and Truman Jones making the roster. Now, obviously, that's probably going to change. And if Menahue is not able to start the season, this is a position where Kansas City maybe should consider looking and making a trade. Maybe they trade one of their corners to go get a defensive end, somebody that can give them some snaps. It doesn't have to be somebody great. They have cap money, so they have the ability to bring in somebody like that and make this roster even better.
As we sit here on the eve of training camp, what is that cap number?
That's a great question. Let me look real quick.
Because I would say this, I think the determining factor will be FAU's development. If he's able to go, if he's shown advancement, and maybe he's not 100% ready, but you can see it from here, maybe they don't have to go do that.
I guess I disagree with you on that. I think even if he is developed, I think that even if you think he's going to take a lot of snaps, I don't think you want to go into the season with just those 3 guys. If you know Menahue's out at least 3 to 6 games, I don't know how many games he would be out, because that leaves you extremely thin past those 3. I mean, are you going to feel good about having Truman Jones if somebody gets hurt week 1? You're going to feel good about Truman Jones being your defensive end at that point? I'm not. They have about $15.5 million in cap space currently, so they have room. I'll be quite honest with you. Right now, I'm shocked that they still have that cap space, because to me, I was expecting that they were going to get an extension done with somebody before training camp started. And I guess it's technically still possible. We have the rest of this week before everybody else shows up. And I have to give a shout out to Chris Jones, because Chris Jones is just hilarious. But Patrick was talking, or Chris was like, I'm ready for training camp. Patrick responded to him and said, hey, we show up tomorrow, Tuesday. And Chris is like, well, I talked to Coach Reed, and I love you, Patrick, but it's just for QBs and rookies. I'm just sitting there dying.
Well, hey, evidently position change to quarterback is not in Chris Jones's future. I know he wants it, but hey, it's not going to happen. Okay, that's
maybe they'll let him run one this year.
Maybe. There have been crazier things, and we're going to have a what are the crazy plays that we could see episode coming up. If you guys have missed any of our deep dives, we have gone all the way through this roster all summer long. I know it's just training camp. People are starting to come back around to football. If you missed any of us all this summer, make sure you go back and find that. Super searchable anywhere on Apple Podcasts, here on YouTube, wherever you like. You can find those deep dives as well. We've covered pretty much every single scenario until we get news of a roster change. Then we'll dig into that as well, because we are here for you 5 days a week. Thank you to you locos, you everyday listeners. We love you and we appreciate you for it. So make sure that you like and sub here on YouTube and get on the Audible, not just Audible, but Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can get an audio podcast, you can get us for free. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And hit us on the text line at 816-357-8781. You can get signed up there, and then you will get breaking news as it happens. Thank you for being with us tomorrow. Matt and Derek is going to join us coming up, and then we'll get back to telling you what's going on with the quarterbacks and the rookies, as they will have been reported by then. Hopefully we'll get Matt not terribly long after we hear from Patrick Mahomes. So thank you for being with us. It's been a long summer. I hope that you guys are ready for it, because I think we are. This is going to be a lot of fun. It is three-peat focused, and they're about to start camp. Be with us tomorrow to hear all about it. Thanks for listening today.